going to literally welcome these two with rousing applause. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Ivan and DJ Fosta.
Thanks. Great intro. Thanks very much. What an awesome intro. Are the mics working? You guys can hear us? Cool. I just want to start up front by apologizing. I foolishly made my notes on my cell phone as I was flying in today, so I'm not checking my socials or anything. I think it's fairly rude looking at the phone the whole time, but please understand it's just where I've put most of my questions. I think before we start, obviously thanks for the great intro, but a massive shout out to the team behind Fame. I've been in quite a few conversations with them over the last couple of months, and it's really great to see the amount of energy that they put into this. I think we can all agree, as the MC's been saying, just this ability to get together and, coming out of COVID, this is how we start to rebuild the industry. So, really hats off to them, and I think it's some phenomenal work that they've been doing. I've lived in Cape Town for 20 years, and I'm ashamed to say I've never been inside this venue. It's such a beautiful venue. So, once again, just testament to the hard work that the team has been putting to pull this off. So yeah, can we give them a round of applause if you don't mind? So I'm very privileged to sit here today with the mighty DJ Fosta, aka Tulani. Could I get a show of hands? How many of you guys were on the bus and actually managed to go check out Bridges for Music? Okay, cool. So I'm not going to describe it too much. We're going to get into what Bridges for Music is, what it's about, the whole ethos, the core, what it's been up to. And obviously Tulani, aka DJ Fosta, he's heads up Bridges for Music. What is your exact title there, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it's actually the Bridges Academy in Langa, which is an initiative of Bridges for Music. And I'm one of the co-founders of the academy. And my day-to-day work is operations manager.
Right. So we're very, very privileged and very lucky to have him here today. But I think to really frame the conversation, and before we get into Bridges, I really wanted to unpack who you were and really understand your journey within music. So him and I go quite far back, almost a couple decades, I would say. Yeah. And I think we're both very lucky because we come from a very strong musical background, and I think we're both the same in the fact that music has certainly opened many doors for us. So I'd like to take us right back into your history, okay. Growing up. Where exactly did you grow up?
Okay. Basically, my name is Tulani, and my surname is Headman. I come from Langa, from a family of the Ngukanas. My family slightly changed. My surname changed, actually, but that's another long story. But yeah, I mean, I was born, my father is Cyril Ngukana, who's one of the Ngukana brothers who are quite known as the jazz pioneers back in the days. I mean, dating from their father, Ufezile Mra, Christopher Columbus, and the sons, obviously, Ezra Ngukana and Duke Ngukana. So yeah, I mean, that's my family. Basically, I was born in music, and yeah. I mean,
so if you don't mind me asking, because yeah. I mean, I think it's so relevant to today's conversation. You came from a very rich musical family.
Yeah.
And I actually only noticed this the other day, so I do apologize, but I saw you playing keys on an Instagram video. And I mean, I've always known you as a prolific DJ. I actually had no idea that you could play keys. So when did sort of the music start to filter within your life? Like,
well, I would say like from when I was born, because my family was always, my family house was always, filled with musicians. I mean, people such as Brenda Fassie, Ringo Madlingozi, Mekoi Mukhubata. These are people that I grew up in front of, because also my house was kind of like known. So in Langa, basically in the olden days, there were kind of like three families that kind of like had a grand piano, and it was the Fassie family, my family, and Caps and Sauce, and the Plakis family, where Dizu Plaki comes from. So what happened is that because of the scarcity of the instrument, a lot of musicians would kind of like hang around in those family houses to kind of try to get in the music scene. And basically, I was quite influenced, by my uncles hanging around at home, because my house was also utilized as a rehearsal space, So, I mean, and, I was kind of like surrounded by jazz music. And I remember when I got interested into playing as well, because my father was a brilliant piano player and a composer as well.
So sorry, just to ask, was that the first instrument you ever touched, was the piano?
Yes, yes. Look, I've tried, I mean, every time they were taking a break, when the instruments were set up, I would sneak around, and try fiddle with instruments. But, back in those days, it was not the same as nowadays. Every time you would touch an older person's instrument, you would be kind of like, be stopped. Hey, you're going to break that, you are not given that opportunity. However, piano was my very first instrument that I got to learn. And unfortunately, my dad only taught me one song, which is the Family House song, You Think You Know Me, by the Ngukana brothers. And that was it, because he didn't have much time, because at that time they were also touring. It was just after 94 when things had opened up, they were busy touring. They had also a band called Beto, which won the first Sharo to Fame back in 1986. And Ringo Madlingozi was kind of like the lead singer of that band. So they were quite busy. However, as time went, because of having the grand piano, I then started slowly teaching myself. So playing piano, I would say I was self-taught.
Amazing, amazing. I think, obviously growing up in a musical household and being exposed to so much, did that then filter into your school career, whereby at school you were doing a lot of music, or because you had so much exposure to music at home, when it came to school you weren't really worried about that?
Well, it was quite difficult for me because honestly, my mom never wanted me to be in the music industry, and I guess based on the experiences that she had with my father, because in our families, music has never been seen as a career. It has always been seen as the bad scene, because it's either, and this was based because of the experiences that they've had, like musicians such as your Brenda Fassie's, because it was always known as, it's either you're gonna be, you want to get into drug life or the bad stuff or the bad side of music. And also, they didn't see it as a great career to kind of like generate revenue for their family and build their family. So my mom wanted me to be a bank accountant. She wanted me, to be a doctor and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I'm not an academic person,
In your blood.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
choice.
And funny enough, my uncles Ezra Ngugana and Duke Ngugana were very well educated. So even when they came through to the house, the first thing they'd ask me, how are you doing at school? It was never like that type of a support. I was never fully supported when it comes to music. I mean, my mom only started supporting music when I actually came back from the first international trip I had through Bridges for Music in 2014. Because I remember even when I told her that, look, Mom, I just got an opportunity, I'll be going to play in UK. She was like, I don't believe this. She was like, be careful, make sure that, no one touches your bags. They would put bad substances there. She never saw that. She never believed in music. But it has changed now because of the work that we've done. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And then I think there's this wonderful turning point in both our lives. And that's where, I think what's awesome is we sort of have this foundation and this history in traditional music. But then this thing comes along called electronic music.
Yeah.
And it kind of grabs you and takes control of your life. Yeah. And I guess what I'm alluding to here is just the idea of, and I've seen it happen with many artists, this transition into becoming a DJ. I think, without talking out of turn, I think in today's society, not many people really understand the art form around DJing. And furthermore, I think just how important sort of that traditional background you had and how it shapes you as a DJ. So I wanted to ask first, at what point, because I can remember it to the day, at what point did you get bitten? Like, when did you know, okay, DJing, this is something I want to do?
Yeah, I think this was actually just after 95, 96, because as much as I said, like my very first songs that I even tried to do on the piano were more jazz influenced. I remember at that time, 94, 96 was when Kwaito was kind of like introduced. And I mean, prior to that, the jazz music was kind of like related to a lot of apartheid fighting, the message there. And yet now when we had this music which was introduced, which was mostly talking to us, the youth, was more of kind of like celebrating the overcoming of apartheid, and now there was more funky music. And I remember one of the musicians that I kind of like related to was Don Langa, because Don Langa was kind of like your jazz artist, but his music was more vibey, adapting into the Kwaito scene. And that's when I actually fell in love with Kwaito. And then I remember around 1997, I kind of like started doing my first Kwaito tracks, and I came up with an idea of forming my first group, which was called Genders at the time. And there were kind of like 4 guys, in the group. And yeah, that's when I kind of like adapted to Kwaito music. However,
so was Kwaito the first electronic music you fell in love with?
Yes. Kwaito was the first electronic music that I kind of like fell in love and started slowly but surely. And that's where basically my love of DJing also kind of like kick-started. I remember at that time on Radio Metro, every Fridays you would get the National Top 20. And after that, on TV, it was TV1, CCTV at the time, it would be Studio Mix, and then later on at night, 02 Hour Zone. That's actually how I know those Mark Alex songs. I grew up listening to that stuff. So yeah, I mean, you every time you wanted to hear the new release of a song, those were the platforms that you would jump into. And at that time, because I was not much supported family-wise in terms of music, I started stealing my father's cassettes to actually start recording the music from the radio. And I was the best dubber, because I would time, even when the presenter would start talking, I would kind of like turn that off. And after collecting that music that way, I would then, whenever there would like be someone getting married, and then they would kind of like be looking for someone to play the music, I would be the first one to jump. Because fortunately enough, my father had some tech stuff there, he had speakers and stuff like that, and I would be using 2 cassette players, to kind of like play and mix. However, there was not BPM, beat matching at that time.
I actually have to say at this point, there's one rule I've made in life, and that's to never DJ at a wedding, because it's the hardest gig you'll ever get in your life. Because someone undoubtedly will hate whatever you're doing. I think just to go back a point there, I think for those of you that don't know, that South Africa's probably got one of the richest histories when it comes to electronic music. And if you look on a global scale right now, just how important South African music is and the impact that it's having on a global stage, right now we're kind of like #1, literally. And I think it's a lot to do with the likes of Don Larker, using 909 and 808 drum machines and doing the first bit of Kwaito and starting Kalawa Jazz Me and guiding Mosquito. These guys laid the foundations for all of us.
Yeah.
And I think what was super interesting for me at the time was that this wave of electronic music came from Detroit, Chicago, and hit South Africa as apartheid was getting dismantled. And to your point, it was like literally the freedom music. And without having to plug it myself, there's a couple really good documentaries about how this happened. So for those of you that don't know the history of electronic music in South Africa, I would really suggest going to check it out, because we're literally so privileged to live in this country. And when you look at the greats and the history and the chapters that have been laid down before us, it really is something worth investigating. And I think as someone who enjoys music as much as I do, as much as I look forward to new music, if you don't know your past and you don't know the history of the music, you don't really appreciate the future as much. So I really implore you guys to go and check out the past. So moving on, just with regards to you falling in love with DJing, do you kind of remember other than the cassette tapes and the weddings, what was your first sort of professional gig, would you say?
Well, actually, my first professional gig came quite later on, in the stage, because my first love has been producing music. I always wanted to own my record label, and I guess like growing up as well, I was looking up to 3 main labels, which were Kalawa Jazz Me, 24/7, which was run by Mdu Masilela, and 999, which was run by Arthur Mafukate. And at this time, I think one of the first things that I loved about these guys was that they were all black South Africans and owning their businesses. And funny enough, the main role model was Arthur Mafukate, and things have changed now, obviously, growing up and understanding the business. Yeah, I mean, when you walked into my room, my wardrobe was filled with his pictures and 999. Yeah, and however, like these 3 labels were labels that I was looking up to. I always had the dream that one day I will work with one of these guys, and yeah, that kind of like pushed me a lot, and I mean, as much as I said, I caught up with DJing quite at a later stage in the 2000s, actually, and my very first gig was at Club Snap, which is down the road at Short Market Street, which later was named Chrome. At that time, it was Club Snap, ran by Mr. I. Yeah, that was my very first professional gig.
Amazing. Just hearing you talk and just understanding how much passion and what I like to call energy you've put into music, just to sort of bring us into the now, I think it's so amazing the way the universe unfolds. And I think to look at the recording studio that you now have access to and what Bridges is doing, You know, it's world class, and,
Yeah.
and obviously to have you at the helm is such a privileged place to be.
Sure.
So congratulations.
Thanks,
firstly.
thanks.
Could you? I think actually you've got a nice video to show us if we
Yeah.
sort of step into the bridges
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah. Well, before that, I mean, there's something that I would like to share, you know, because it was not easy for me to actually get here and even be the person that I am. Because, I mean, growing up from a township, the challenges that we all know, you know, it's a disadvantaged community. And as much as I was like, kind of like raised within the musical family, you know, there are those bad elements within the township. And at that time, there was lack of role models, you know, because there was no one that we could relate to. The people that I'm talking about were quite older. And we didn't kind of like have young role models that we could adapt to. And the only role models at that time in the townships were actually people that were involved in crime. And I myself got caught up in the wrong side of things in the late 90s, early 2000s. And yeah, I got involved in crime, and I ended up in prison, at Portsmouth Prison, and I served some time there. However, you know, after coming out of the prison, I've always kind of like hated that moment. After some time, I remember while shooting the documentary, Bridges for Music, I started realizing how grateful, or how I should be grateful of that moment, because it actually changed my life. I remember being in prison, that's when I kind of like realized that, you know, I was actually on the wrong side of things, and I was not supposed to, whereby I had talent, which other young kids didn't have that talent of being able to kind of like have access to a piano, or being able to play piano. And, you know, I kind of like made a promise to myself that the minute I came out, I needed to change and be, you know, that change that I want to see in my community, and be that role model that I never had, you know. And 2004, I got released out of prison, and I remember the name Fosta, actually, I named myself while I was in prison, because I kind of like wanted to have a new identity as a change. And Fosta is a slang word to mean to force things to happen. And I mean, at that time, you know, there was this belief that you have to be based in Johannesburg in order to make it in the industry. And I was always against that. I never believed in that. And I think that's one of the reasons why we kind of like didn't have role models within the industry here in Cape Town. So when I came out, I named myself Fosta. Then started my own label, which was 021 Records. And the reason for that, we kind of like wanted something to symbolize Cape Town. And 021 is the dialing code of Cape Town. And then also it's a pun at the same time, which is from 0 to number 1, because when we started, we had nothing, no computers. I remember the very first song that I produced, I was using my computer speakers and the old computer, which I had lended from my partner. And then, yeah, 2005, we produced a song, Kulula, which was quite well received. And basically what, like one of our goals with 021 Records was that we're not gonna bother ourselves knocking at doors at major labels, but we kind of like identified how we could reach our own market and go out there. So basically we identified the universities of Cape Town. I mean, we've got plus minus 4 or 5 tertiaries in Cape Town, and 70% of the students are not Cape Townian. So what we did at that time, we had platforms such as Bluetooth and Mixit. So we took our music into our phones, and we started going out basically to these universities and identified certain groups of people, and we started sharing our music to those people. And we did that for like 2 months or so, and yeah, my song actually landed up on Euphonics' hands, who was at that time—
Which song was this?
Kulula.
Oh, Kulula.
Yeah. It landed up on Euphonics' hands, who's known as Temba. At that time, he was running a show on 5FM, quite influensive as well. Show on 5FM every Sundays, and he started playing the song because he was playing at the gig here in Cape Town and came across it and started playing the song for 2 weeks and didn't know who the producers was, and he kind of like, you know, was calling for anyone who knew these people. And fortunately, a friend of mine, Lloyd, who was friends with Euphonic, kind of like told him, actually, I know these guys, and that's how we got linked up. And that song was number 1 on 5FM for 4 weeks.
Amazing.
You know, it kind of like opened ways for us, and yeah, from there, Fosta and 021 Records kind of like got known, and then after that started producing other music as well, which was well received. And I think that moment kind of like made a huge change, you know, and at that time we didn't realize it, you know, because I'm talking about 12 years back, But I mean, looking at how the industry is now, it's exactly that. You know, there's a lot of independent labels just doing things on their own. You know, so I do think that in a way we've kind of like played a huge role for bedroom producers, you know, to kind of like believe in themselves and take things, you know, out there and kind of like own their music as well.
Definitely, man. I think, you know, you spoke about this idea of there being no role models. And, you know, I engage with the youth quite a lot from all over the country. And your name certainly comes up a lot. And I know you're very, very highly regarded. So it is amazing to see that transition. So thanks for that. So, yeah, I think if through that journey, obviously there was this sort of critical point where you do sort of meet up with Bridges for Music.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Abel's actually with us here today. I know it was kind of his brainchild. But when do you kind of remember the intersection point?
Yeah, I remember that very, very well, man. A lovely friend of mine, Valentino Pariozeta, is actually up there. He actually...
Hi, Val.
Yeah, Valentino used to be a promoter in Spain, in Ibiza, and used to run like one of the biggest clubs, Amnesia. And I guess Val kind of like was kind of like, I wouldn't say sick and tired, but kind of like had enough, you know, of the industry being seen the way it was seen. And obviously, I mean, in our industry, there's a lot of spending, you know, unnecessary spending and partying, and obviously psychedelics, you know, mixed there. And I mean, I think he had enough of that, and he took his sabbatical leave coming down to South Africa, and he actually did a tour to Langa. And I mean, while he was in Langa, he was quite surprised with the impact of music, you know. And while doing the tour, he kind of like wanted to be introduced to the people that were kind of like in the forefront of the music scene. And he was brought to me, and that's how I kind of like met Val. And we kind of like kept contact, you know, even after he left. And Val had this amazing idea of kind of like utilizing the networks that he had built abroad to kind of like bring those artists down to Cape Town and try to inspire the youth coming from disadvantaged communities. And that's when we basically started hosting workshops. I remember Ivan were there with CTMF and stuff. The very first workshop that we did, Red Bull as well, at Kugastebe with Richie Horton and Black Coffee. And I mean, that workshop was amazing. It was very inspiring. We even identified a young guy at that time, Sipe Fasi, who was quite interested, the youngest person in the workshop. And not only that, but it actually made a huge change within the Cape Town dance scene, you know, because, I mean, we all know back in the days, I mean, a couple of years ago, festivals probably like I don't want to name festivals, but there was some sort of like dividends. You would see certain festivals would be kind of like white dominated, and like black DJs would only play at Yomzoli's or township type of vibes. But by hosting those workshops, I think the whole idea was to also kind of like, you know, create some change basically, and kind of like try to bring your northern suburbs guys down to Langa and kind of like show them how Langa is safe, and kind of like utilizing music to bring us together, kind of like create some diversity. And that happened quite well, because I remember in the very first workshop, half of the crowd were actually, you know, not people from the townships. And yeah, it was quite amazing.
I think it was pretty genius on Bel's behalf and the whole Bridges ethos, because I mean, I remember right at the beginning, like people like Luciano and these amazing international DJs coming out, but they were only coming to play at Langa. So yeah, you had a whole lot of people traveling from all parts, even from South Africa. I had people flying in from Joburg to come and watch these performances. So I think this comes down to the theme of the discussion, which is really the power of music.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of electronic music, but the reason I use that term is electronic, in my mind, kind of encompasses all music, and it's the future of music, because most music these days is electronic, whether it's been recorded electronically or presented electronically. So I think what Bridges was very, very good at doing was realizing the power.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, much to Bel's credit, having worked within Europe, and I think what a lot of South Africans don't understand, or perhaps they do, is just, I think, and you know, in Europe and the way the networks come together, because it's a 1 hour flight here, it's a 2 hour flight there, it's very quick, and all the top promoters who really understand music and all the top artists, everyone kind of gravitates towards each other, because they all kind of, you can see if someone's in the game for the right reasons and if they're not. So you get a very strong network. And then ultimately, I think one of the biggest disadvantages we have as South Africans is how geographically south we are of this party that's going on in Europe. And I think hence the term Bridges for Music is what they wanted to do, was create this bridge for what at that point was probably perceived to be some of the best music in the world.
Yeah.
So what I always enjoyed about South African music is you had these young kids that hadn't been influenced by Europe. They had Fruity Loops, and they had the soul, and just started making the best music. So if you look at Kwaito is actually Chicago house that then got slowed down and kind of created its whole own thing. This then progressed into Gom, which you won't hear anywhere else in the world. In fact, you'll hear it everywhere in the world because it's now a global phenomenon. And then if we look at Amapiano, it's doing the same thing. So I think the rich history that Africa has to offer the world is so profound, and hence why we're seeing the results of it now. But you have this strategic disadvantage of how far south we are. And I think what bridges, what you guys were excellent at doing is starting to create literally these physical bridges. So the team would sit down, and correct me if I'm wrong, but find spaces within some of the world's best festivals. So perhaps you could list some of the festivals that Bridges has actually, where did you play when you went?
So the first one was Glastonbury in UK.
I mean, we've all heard of Glastonbury. It's pretty much the biggest festival in the world.
Yeah.
What are the other big ones?
I mean, we've actually had touring grounds, talking about the power of music, we've had touring grounds, and we've sent some guys to Tomorrowland, the ADE, Amsterdam Dance Event, Awakenings, Boiler Room, yeah. It's actually quite
so it's pretty much like the Premier League of music. And what Bridges for Music has done is really, it's taken some amazing, incredible young talent from here in Cape Town, some Johannesburg talent, some Durban talent even, and placed them in these pretty much career-changing environments, and perhaps something that probably would have taken us another 20 years.
Sure.
So I think that was kind of the first step, but then I know kind of you guys progressed from there. So now we had this gateway where, well, let's stick to the bridge analogy. We had this bridge between us and Europe and us in America. But then ultimately it was the idea of setting up a space.
Yeah.
Now, I know that didn't happen overnight, and I've seen the blood and the sweat and the tears. So perhaps you can just bring to life a little bit about how that vision manifested.
So basically after hosting a number of these workshops, I mean, obviously starting with the first one with Richie Horton and Black Coffee, we continued, because people loved this, and it was quite impactful as well to the guys from the township. We kind of felt that there was something missing, because every time we would bring a world-renowned DJ or artist, they would come with expensive equipment and showcase, to these young guys from our community. And then after the workshop, all that equipment goes away. So it's kind of like showing a poor kid lottery money, and going away with it. And then that's where we kind of felt that we actually needed our own space, and also, hence there was a lot of lack of knowledge, because every youngster that wants to come into the music industry, they kind of want to be the lead singer or the DJ, forgetting that, there's teams behind, these famous DJs and so forth. So that's where we kind of came about with actually having our own space. And as time went, started developing more ideas, even touching on mindfulness, because that's where we kind of felt that, a lot of these young kids, we all come from facing different challenges growing up. Some are even worse as far as trauma challenges, and sometimes it's very important to kind of get a creative in the right space of mind in order for them to kind of express their creativity in the right way. Hence, we've built a program, a 5 months music MBA program, which is actually built around 3 pillars, which is the music production, entrepreneurship as well, and mindfulness, and this kind of helps shape an artist. Not necessarily that we are looking for them to be the most successful artist, but the whole aim is for them, when they complete the program, they can be able to self-sustain themselves, kind of exposing them to other careers as well. We also have an incubation program where we try to link them up with companies that we are working with or we have relationships with. Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting things for me has watched how how Bridges has sort of developed these other aspects of itself. So you speak about mindfulness, you speak about entrepreneurship, and I think it's important to note that I think where we, as I said, where we come from, this idea of being a DJ, it's kind of a sort of washed out term at this point, I feel. But the idea behind being a professional DJ, and what a lot of people don't realize, is that you actually are the full supply chain. You're producing your own music. You're then marketing yourself. You're literally the entire operation. And I think it does set you up very well for other parts of life in general.
Yeah. Sorry to disturb. Yeah. Look at me. I came in the music industry wanting to be a DJ and a producer, and look at me now. I've kind of like had gained more, and thanks to Bridges, because Bridges for Music has been quite a great life changing. For me, it's been an experience, and I remember I had to kind of like make some couple of decisions, because. When Bridges South Africa was kind of like formed, I then kind of like committed myself to Bridges and kind of like held back on my label. And for me, I kind of like saw a great opportunity, of kind of like what I wanted to do to create a change in my community was kind of like now and a huge assistant to kind of like take that and introduce it to the whole world. Hence, like that's what Bridges is doing, and all this connection. And also, as much, for instance, that might have changed me, but that it's not only impacting me, it's also impacted the greater of my family, because now I've got a proud family that's looking up to me, which is the same as, our co-creators or our students that come through our program, as much as we might be giving that opportunity to that one student, but it doesn't only just change that one student, but it changes the family as well. And when you look at our communities, you'd get each and every household, it has plus minus 8 or 6 family members in it, and because most of our families, we don't have academics and stuff like that. So if we can be able to change one person's life, that kind of like relates back to the family, we might be looking at 140 students that come through our door, but it's actually more than that. We're making a greater impact to the community.
Sort of like an exponential impact on the surroundings. And I must say, and I'm not trying to like sort of butter you guys up here. I've seen it. Like, I take time out of my schedule to come visit the school, and a lot of the time it's to see you and to see Vel and Ati, but for me, the sheer joy is just looking at the kids and seeing them engrossed in those computers and just walking through that space. There's a very positive energy that you can feel as you come through the doors. And I think for those of you that haven't been there, I really implore you to go check it out, because, for me, even just the way the art has been curated, like everything has been well done. Like the full experience of walking through the gates, into the space, into the studios, into, getting into the curriculum of things. And I think it has certainly been quite an impressive journey. I've been fortunate enough. I think I was one of the first people to meet Vel when he came down here and hear his vision. And I know you guys have had massive scrutiny. It hasn't been easy. Everyone wanted it not to work. Everyone had reasons to say, oh, but this isn't right. And if I was doing it, I would do it like this. But I think you guys have steadied the course. And it has been a fantastic journey to watch.
Well, I guess like some of the things that I've learned, in my journey is that it's not easy to not be normal, and that's what Bridges is, And for those of you that actually haven't been to the school, I actually have a video. We have a video that I would like to actually showcase that kind of like takes one of our students' journey, and. The video has been sponsored by Pioneer DJ, which is one of our major sponsors. If we can kind of like show that video.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, it's in close-up, but there are some subtitles on
it. Igama lam ndingufundiswa Mbambani. Abandaziyo bathi Fundi. Ndina 25. Eli likhaya lam. Lena ingingqi yam uLanga. Eyona lokishi endala apha eKapa eyaziwa ngomculo, isport, iart yonke. Kulapho iimbongi ezininzi zisuka khona ezasinzela indlela. Apha kulapha ndichitha ixesha lam elininzi khona.
You hardly find a space like this, especially in the township. 40% of our time we focus on entrepreneurship and 40% on music production. The other 20% is more around mindfulness. So in the count of 3, we all breathe in. 1, 2, 3, breathe in. Many times we don't realize that, once you change one person's life, you're actually changing the lives of the rest of their families. Exhale. And we feel it's very important to get our co-creators at the right space of minds in order for them to open up and be able to learn more. I mean, I know it from myself, it's quite difficult to explain, but once you start putting on that machine, and pressing play, their creativity gets ignited.
It elevates us, whether you're learning or whether there's a visitor who's coming to actually show us what they know on these equipments, you're getting the best of what's out there.
Pioneer DJ has been in the picture of Bridges for Music for quite some time, and they've been one of the main music industry role players that have supported Bridges from day one. Pioneer DJ also supports students as well. We run a scholarship grant, and Pioneer has played a huge role on that. And also, we've got 5 mentors from Pioneer DJ who also mentor our students.
It was natural that once the school was built, our next level of support was around kitting out the school.
The level of gear that they have access to here is the industry standard. It is the top of the range, it's flagship Pioneer. Coming from a disadvantaged background, I had to make do with what I had. I had a broken amplifier that I had to turn on its side with a broken deck mounted to it. And I used to use the rotary knob to learn to scratch with it. I'm looking at all these controllers and the decks and the mixers, and your mind goes off and you become so excited about everything.
Right? Apha kulapha ndifumana imfundiso zokuziphuhlisa njengamntu. Apha kulapho ndiziva ukuba ndiphila manyani.
In a project like this, the priority needs to be about vision and purpose. If you can build bridges between communities like this across the world, that's the ultimate vision. And it's been a very humbling journey.
Kum umculo ngumtya, uyinto edibanisa abantu, uyindlela, uluxolo, ububo nobulungisa.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing work done there, guys. I'm cognizant of time, so I will try to wrap this up, but there is actually so much more to speak about, so I don't know what I'm going to leave out. But I think just looking at kind of next steps, I think you've actually made quite a bold step, and it was actually last week already,
Yeah.
by Bridges.
It's Bridge Fire.
Bridge Fire. I know
Bridge
you've
Fire.
done workshops in Joburg, but I think last week was the first time where you actually activated a full sort of academy-esque. So maybe you could just tell people a little bit about what you did last week.
Okay, so basically, we've just started another initiative called Bridge Fire, and basically it's more of a 3-day talent accelerator program, which kind of like had a small taste of the Bridges Academy program as well, where we've selected 10 participants throughout South Africa and kind of like had them based at Constitutional Hill at Flame Studio. Flame Studio is one of the studios which was founded by Robbie Potson, one of the founders of Nando's. And by the way, Nando's is one of our sponsors as well. So the whole idea is to kind of like assist the guys, and try to create more networks for them and more international relations as well. And also just to equip them, with the necessary information and knowledge to kind of like take their products to the next step, yeah. So that was quite amazing. We had programs such as reimagining your story with a great guy, Ntsikelelo Mzobomvu, reimagining yourself, sorry. We had mentors such as Zex Bantwini, Shimza, Msaki, Nongupiri, just to name a few. We did the mindfulness as well. And then we also got the guys to jump in studio with the assistance of Sunel Music, and kind of like touching and getting advice on their music production. And the last day, the guys also had the opportunity to kind of like perform the music. And one of our biggest aims is to actually open another Bridges Academy satellite in Johannesburg, which we are currently working on. However, I do want to mention this, Ivan. One of our biggest challenges, running a project like this, and I mean, each student at the academy costs us like plus minus 35K to kind of like complete the whole program. However, the only thing we require from the students is 1,000 Rand refundable deposit. And we kind of like get corporate companies to sponsor or support those students. And yeah, we basically just require the 1,000 Rand refundable. And after the program, if the student attendance is 95% and above, they get back that 1,000 Rand. We just need some sort of commitment. So one of our biggest challenges is to kind of like creating a sustainable financial support, because we haven't had any grants from the local government, and we are still knocking on the doors so that we can kind of like have that. And especially now with the plan of opening another satellite at the Cornhill, we definitely want to still reach out more, to the corporates out there, to the South African corporates, and most possibly the South African government, because we feel that if we could have that support, we can then create an even greater impact. We are currently we are kind of like 160 students a year in our campus in Langa, but we want to double that number, because we do have short courses aside from the Music MBA. We also run an FL Studio short course and the Pro DJ short course, which is led by Reddy D and his team. So we definitely would like to, reach out, to those corporates. And one of our biggest plans, is also to try and attract international students, international paying students, because we feel that this would be a great experience for them. And by having the paying students, that would help us subsidize more of the local guys to come through the program. So yeah. I mean, you can go out to our social media.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask.
Okay.
So if I'm a big corporate or if I'm a small corporate, I mean, if I'm just someone who wants to get involved with helping to support the academy, what are the steps? How do I get hold of you guys?
Well, the first thing, it would be great if you could visit our academy, because I always believe that once you are there and get to feel, the space, that will make a huge difference within you. However, on our socials, it's Bridges for Music, and you can send an email to connect@bridgesformusic.org, connect@bridgesformusic.org, and it's Bridges for Music throughout all our social medias, and or Bridges Academy throughout all our social medias. And you can check out our website as well, Bridges Academy or Bridges for Music. And also, just so that you don't get confused, Bridges for Music is the mother organization, and Bridges Academy, it's an initiative of Bridges for Music.
Awesome, thanks for that. I just wanted to check, are there any questions out there just while we have Fosta with us? Anyone have some questions they'd like to ask? Can we perhaps get a microphone? Sorry to jump you guys like that. I guess while we wait for the microphone, my last question, just what does the future hold for yourself personally and kind of your vision for Bridges?
I would so love to produce more music, honestly, and kind of like touching that up. And I've been trying, but sometimes because of the work that I do, I always find myself trying to help another person, because I feel that that's my purpose in life, opening other doors for other guys, all the challenges that we faced, to try and clear them up so that other guys don't have to face those challenges. Hence, I believe that that's what Bridges for Music is about and the academy is about. So, and basically, I would so love, man, if we could open more campuses and try to have a greater impact on other families throughout the whole South Africa, and probably throughout the whole Africa.
Amazing, amazing. Did we manage to sort a mic? Yes. Okay, great. Sorry, we've got a question up here.
Okay, good. Good afternoon. My name is Zokisa. I'm from Quantum Melanin Media. I'm a spoken word performing artist, songwriter. I just want to know from you, in your from your personal experience, what do you think are the 3 most important things for an artist to have, especially in relation to longevity in the music industry? Because I'm sure, as you might have seen, we've had people come into the industry, become superstars, and the next thing, we don't hear from them. They disappear. So what do you think are the 3 most important things for someone to last in the music industry? Thank you.
Great question.
Cool. Thanks, man. That's a great question indeed. I think the very first thing, it's to know your purpose, finding your purpose. And secondly, always be humble, remain grounded, because it's actually people that make you grow as an artist. It's not you. And discipline, those are the most important thing, because any artist, it's not only talent that takes them up or gets them successful, but I mean, if you are grounded and you're respectful, and disciplined, that for me personally, I think those are the most important thing. And also respect yourself, because once you start understanding your purpose, you would respect that, so yeah.
Great. Got another question here.
Afternoon again. I'm also from Quantum Melanin Media. So at Quantum Melanin Media, we also have a department under our music record label. So we do hip hop, R&B, soul, etc. And we also do house, but within the context of deep house. So one of our DJs is Mr. Chairperson. He's aspiring to be a producer. So how can he be able to come and work with you guys? Because we're based in Khayelitsha. And from my side, it's the first time I hear of DJ Fosta. And I know Langa because I used to attend school there at St. Francis at around 2002, 2003. So I know it's rich when it comes to arts. So I would like to collaborate with Langa from Khayelitsha. So how can we connect? Because I'm all about networking.
Sure. I think, like as I said, man, I think one of the best things would to come down to the school. I mean, our doors are always open. We normally do tours, and then we explain to you further on how maybe he can also apply on that, because we also run a short course, FL Studio, which is led by Sipet Debeka, who's one of the great producers to come from Cape Town. And that kind of runs for 2 months. So it's always great to come through and just get the taste of the space, and we can explain further and look at ways that we can assist.
Awesome. Cool. I think I'm going to call it. So yeah, just on behalf of all of us, thanks for the insights today.
Thanks.
Thanks for the incredible work that you guys are doing, and I hope you guys continue to do such amazing work. And yeah, I think it's so important to get your messaging out, because Khayelitsha, hearing about you guys today, and it's a couple miles away. So I think, as much as for me it's so important around us connecting to this global audience, I think there's a lot to be said about us connecting locally.
Sure,
that's why I'm so excited about you guys making a lot more moves in Johannesburg.
Yeah.
Hope to see you guys in Durban, PE.
Yeah.
Let's get you guys everywhere. So, but once again, thanks for your time today. I think thanks again to Fame for allowing this to happen, allowing us to get this story across. And thanks for your guys' engagement today. It's really, really cool to be in a room like this. So thank you very much.